This conference will now be recorded.
As part of yesterday's session, we were understanding HCL, HashiCorp configuration language, which is used to define our infrastructure as a code in Terraform configuration files. In HCL, everything we are going to define in the form of block. Blocks are containers for some configuration, some content, and block has a block type followed by one or more labels for that block, followed by double flower bracket within that blocks. Within that body, you can define the configurations arguments for that block. There is various blocks which we already discussed: Terraform block, provider block, resource block, and we have variable block, local block, locals, and output block. These three are especially for variables and outputs. We can use these three blocks, and this is especially for Terraform related configurations. What version of the Terraform we are expecting in the system where we want to run Terraform configurations, and the backend providers, what providers we are expected for Terraform to use to manage the resources. We are going to define in the Terraform block. It is like a settings of Terraform, and the provider configurations like region, cloud region, the access keys, secret keys, or some other provider related settings or configurations we are going to define in the provider block. Resource block. Resource block is the backbone of Terraform configurations, right? We are going to use resource block to define the resources which we want to manage via Terraform. That can be your virtual networks, that can be compute instances, or storage, or networks, or buckets, or managed Kubernetes clusters or databases. That resources which we wanted to define and manage using Terraform, we can use using resource block. And the variables and outputs we can manage using this block: variable block, local block, and output block. So these are the HCL configurations or blocks which we discussed so far. Like this, we have few more blocks: module block and a data block. Data block or data source we call it. Let's understand what is this module block. Module block or modules. Modules are like a reusable. Modules are like a small reusable Terraform configurations. Modules are like a small and reusable Terraform configurations that will allow us to manage collection of related resources as if they are one, which means instead of duplicating your Terraform configurations to create a various related resources multiple times, you can use a concept of modules here. Modules are like a small reusable Terraform configurations that will allow us to manage a collection of related resources as if they are one. Module, a module in Terraform serves as a container for multiple resources that are used together. Module in a Terraform serves as a group, as a container for managing multiple resources together. To understand, or to put it simply, module is a set of configuration files. Module is a set of Terraform configuration files in a single directory. To put it simply, a module is nothing but a set of Terraform configuration files in a single directory. So even a single Terraform configuration file, even though you have a single Terraform file, configuration file in a directory, becomes a module. Even a single Terraform configuration file in one directory becomes a module. When Terraform commands are executed from that directory, from such a directory that contains that contains that contents of the directory is considered as the root module. So even a single Terraform configuration file in a directory becomes a module when Terraform commands are executed directly from such a directory. The contents of the directory considered as a root module. From the directory where you are running Terraform commands, in which you have a Terraform configuration files, is considered as a root module. Okay? So basically a module is a method for packaging and reusing configurations of resources. It's kind of a reusing configurations or reusing resources in Kubernetes. Module is a method for packaging and reusing configurations. Basically what modules do, basically what modules does, as I already told, module will enable us to group modules will enable us to group related resources that can be instances, that can be network related resources, or that can be storage related resources, Terraform resources. A module will enable us to group related resources together and reuse them in the future multiple times. Suppose let's assume we need to repeatedly create a virtual machine. We need to repeatedly create a virtual machines with set of resources such as IP address, firewalls, and storage, etc. This is where modules come in handy. We don't want to repeatedly write same configuration code. We don't want to repeatedly write same configuration code over and over again. We don't want to duplicate Terraform configuration to create some set of resources repeatedly. You don't want to repeatedly write same configuration over and over again. We can use a module concept. You can create Terraform configuration files in some specific folder. You can create a Terraform configuration files where you can define what resources needs to be created under the Terraform configuration file. That folder is considered as a module, and that module can be used. That module, suppose let's consider you have created one folder. In that server folder you have some Terraform configuration file where you have defined some resource blocks to create some servers, and this folder contains set of configuration files, and that folder is referred using module block. That folders can be referred using module block. So instead of duplicating these configurations multiple times, you can use this module multiple times as a reusable purpose. So we will understand in detail how to create a module, what is the advantages with module, all those things. But modules, this module block, using module block, you can refer the modules to reuse some infrastructure resources to be created repeatedly, whatever has been defined in the module. And we have one more important block. That is data block. We have one more important block, that is data block or data sources. Data block, or we call it as a data sources. Data sources or data block. Terraform can use data sources or data block to get information about resources that are set up outside of Terraform. Using data block, you can get information about some resource. Using data block, you can gather the information or you can get the information. Terraform can use data block or data sources, we call it, to get the information about resources that are configured outside of Terraform and use that information to set up the resources. Using data block, you can get the information about the resources that are configured outside of Terraform and using that information, whatever you have gathered using data block, we can set up some other Terraform resources using that information. So data block, it's a way of getting, using data block or data sources, it's a way of getting, data from outside world and make it available to your Terraform configuration. Data block or data sources can get information about the resources that are configured outside of Terraform, and you can use that data information to set up the other resources in Terraform. It's a way, of getting data from outside world and make it available to your Terraform configurations using data block. So data sources or data block allow Terraform to use information defined outside of Terraform, defined by any other Terraform configuration. Using data sources or data block, you can get the information defined outside of Terraform or defined by any other separate Terraform configurations. You can gather the data. So data sources is accessed through a special type of resource called data block. A data source is accessed through a special type of resource called data resource, which is declared using data block. Just to give an example, I want to create a AWS EC2 instance. Let's say I want to create a AWS EC2 instance. As I already told, you will define all this information, right? You are going to define your provider information. In your Terraform configuration. Suppose you want to create a EC2 instance, you are going to define a provider information, Terraform information, that provider configuration. Let's say this is one Terraform configuration file. You will say, I want Terraform to download AWS provider, and here I am configuring that provider, saying that I want to manage this one in Mumbai region, like that. If required, here I can say access key, secret key, other things. Now I want to create a EC2 resource, and there is a resource block. Which we discussed yesterday, and you can create a EC2 instance supported by this provider. You are going to define something like this, right? Resource block and provider name and the type of the resource which can be managed by that provider, like instance, and some kind of a name for that resource in the Terraform. And you are going to define some information like this AMI. Let's say AWS instance I want to create. So I may need to define some AMI ID. Let's say I may need to define some AMI ID, just to give an example, something like this. This is resource block. You are going to say what type of instance, instance type, I'll say t2.micro, like that. But my requirement, I want to gather this information in Terraform and use that information here. Suppose I want to gather the latest Ubuntu AMI ID in that region. I don't know what is that AMI ID. Let's say I don't want to hard code like this. I want to get the latest Ubuntu AMI ID in that region, and I want to use here. So instead of hard coding, I can fetch the data using data block. Instead of hard coding like this, using data block or data source, we can get the information about the resources that are set up outside of Terraform, and you can use that information to set up Terraform resources. So data sources or data block will allow Terraform to use information defined outside of Terraform or defined by any other separate Terraform configuration. So I want to get the data using data block. I can gather some resource information. Something like this. I want to gather some resource information, something like this. This is data block. This is data block. I can define data block like this. I can define data block like this. Data, what resource information you want to gather also based on the provider only. So here data block and provider and the type of the resource, what type, the type of the resource, that information you want to gather, this is also based on the providers only. If you see the way you have a resources, right, each provider will give resources, each providers will give resources which has to be created. Similarly, there is a data source also. Using this resource block, using this type of resource, you can create a resource. Using data source, this type of, you can gather the information. This is like data source. Using this data source of this type, you can manage, you can gather the information about that resource. Something like this data block, the provider name, under the resource type. These are the resource type of data sources supported by AWS provider under EC2. So you can gather the AMI information, you can gather the availability zones information, you can gather AWS EC2 information also based on some tags like this you can give. Similarly, I want to gather some information about AMI which is managed outside of Terraform. So you can use data block like this. What type of resource information you want to gather, this type. This is again like a label. This is like again like a label or alias you can consider. Here we are applying some filters. I want most recent AWS AMI, and what type of AMI I am saying, like Ubuntu, Jami, whatever version it could be. And I am applying some other filters also, virtualization, HVM, architecture, 8.64, owner, managed by Amazon itself. This data block will contact that provider. The data block will contact that provider for this resource type to gather information based on the filter. So it will gather the information about the resource created or managed outside of Terraform. Like I want to gather AMI information, Ubuntu AMI, most recent AMI I need, and the AMI, the root device type should be EBS, the AMI virtualization is HVM, 64-bit AMI, owner is Amazon, like that. We are applying some filters here. So it will return the ID, AMI information basically. So that I can here use, instead of hard coding, I can say something like this: data dot AWS underscore AMI dot, and this is like a referencing block. I am referring this name dot ID. So this is going to gather the information. This is going to gather the information. What information it is gathering based on this? This is a data block. It is going to gather the information. But what information it is gathering? AMI information. AMI information, because AWS underscore AMI is the type of resource I want to gather. So this is going to gather the information. What information? AMI ID, AMI information. And this is like a name. You can give ABC also. You can give ABC also. You can give some name here, label. This is the label or name. And based on this configurations, based on this filters, Terraform will contact that provider to gather the AMI information. That information I can use in other Terraform configurations to manage resources. Now, instead of hard coding the AMI ID, so can I get AMI IDs using this type of data blocks? Not only AMI, any other information like this. Can you gather the information about other resources outside of Terraform and use that information to create or manage resources in Terraform like this? Yes. So yesterday Chandra was asking what is data block. So data block or data source we call it. Data block or data source we call it, right? Using this data block or data source, Terraform can use these data sources to get information about resources again that are configured outside of Terraform and use that information to set up Terraform resources. use that information to set up Terraform resources. And it's a way of getting data from outside world and make it available to Terraform configurations. So data sources will allow Terraform to use information defined outside of Terraform. So defined by any other Terraform configuration also. I have given example. In the below example, we have defined two blocks, data block and resource block. We are sending data from data source to directly into the AMI variable in the resource block. So if you see in the below example, using data block, I am gathering information out of information about this type of resource type, this type of resource type, and we are applying some filters, right? And this data block is gathering the information about this type of resource, and we are using that data in Terraform configurations here like this. So what type of data we can gather again depends on the provider only. The way each provider has a type of resources which we can create and manage. Similarly, each provider will have a type of data sources which we can use. Each provider has some resource types which we can create and manage. Similarly, each provider will have a data sources. Data sources. What type of resource data you can gather? If you see under EC2, these are the various types of resources which we can create or manage using Terraform. Similarly, do you have some list of data source types? You can see they're giving like this same thing. Some additional filters I have applied. Like this. Can I get the information about AMI? Suppose you want to get how many availability zones are there in that region. Can I give something like this so that it will give all the availability zones? And can I use I don't know what availability zone IDs. Can I get availability zones like this? And can I use this data in some other Terraform configurations? Suppose you want to create a subnet. While creating a subnet, instead of hard coding availability zone, can we get the data using this data block, and can I assign that availability zone when I am creating a subnet like this instead of hard coding also? Yes. So there are various type of data sources also provided by that provider, not only just resources. Using resource types, you can create resources and manage. Using these data source types, you can gather the information about those resources which is created or configured outside of Terraform. Clear what is data block? Like every provider has a resources as well as data sources. You can go here, you can see, you can go to browse providers. If you go to Azure also, if you go to Azure documentation also, like you go to any type of service that you can manage using this provider, you can gather the resources also. You can manage the resources, or you can use a data sources, or you can create a resources also. Let me show that. Let me go to compute here. These type of resources can be created using this provider. Similarly, there is a data sources also. If you want to get some information about Azure AMIs, Azure machine images also, you can use like this. So is everyone clear what is data block? In real environment we are using data source, definitely, because you want to get some kind of information, right? What availability zones are there? You don't know availability zone IDs in that region. Can I get availability zones, list of availability zone names in that region? Or can I get the AMI IDs in that region, like that, using this data block or data source block, whatever you call it? Yes, why not? You need to use some you need to gather some information from the cloud to create some resources in the cloud using Terraform. If you want to gather some information from that cloud, you are going to use data block. You are going to use data block. I don't want to always hard code, guys. Let's say this is one best example. I don't want to always hard code this AMI ID. I want sometimes in future they may have introduced latest version of the AMI for the Ubuntu. I don't want to again manually get that ID and paste that ID. Can I use something like this data block? It will get the data about this resource, and can I use that here? That is why you will use data block, data sources you call it. You are going to get some information about the resources which is managed outside of Terraform into Terraform, and you can use that information to create resources. Instead of hard coding like this, we are referencing the data. Clear? The data block. In same configuration file only you are defining, but each block is doing different, guys. Each block is doing its own. So resource block is creating a resources, but a data block is getting the data. Can I use the data gathered by data block into inside resource block? Resource block is going to create a resource. While creating a resource, I am giving information. That information can I get from the data block, and can I pass on to the resource block? The way I have explained here, using resource block, you are creating a resource. Using resource block, you are creating a resource, but while creating a resource, I need to give some input like AMI ID. This AMI ID, can we get from the data block? Using data block, can I get some information and pass on that information to resource block like this? Yes. Understood? Data block is going to do something, resource block is going to do something else. Terraform block will do something else, provider block will do something else, input block will do something else. There are blocks. These are HCL configurations. Is everyone clear? All these blocks. What do you mean by Terraform block? What do you mean by provider block, resource block, module block, data block, like variable block, local output? These variables again we will discuss in detail, guys. Variable again we will discuss in detail. Modules also will discuss in detail. Again, we will use this type of data blocks also sometime. We are going to define our resources using resource block, but these two are simple and straightforward. Terraform block, like a settings for Terraform configurations. Provider block for configuring the providers. The backbone of HCL, HashiCorp configuration language, is a resource block, and all other types of blocks are playing a supporting role to this resource block. The backbone of Terraform configurations is a resource block. All other blocks, that can be Terraform block, provider block, variables block, module block, or data block, is playing a supporting role to the resource block. This is the backbone of Terraform. Using this resource block only, you are defining what type of resources you want to manage using Terraform. Clear? The HCL basics. What is HCL? HashiCorp language. What type of various blocks we have in HCL. Now let's understand the file and the directory structure of Terraform configuration. The files and the directory structure are directory of Terraform. The files and directory of Terraform. So the file extension, what type of extensions we will use to write Terraform configurations? So the code in the Terraform language, is stored in a plain text files with .tf file extension. You take any Terraform file, Terraform configuration, the code in the Terraform language is stored in a plain text files with the .tf file extension. And there is also JSON based variant of the language. There is also a JSON based variant of the language that is named .tf.json extension. Sometimes you see another extension also, .tf.json, but most widely the Terraform file extension will be .tf. The files containing Terraform code, the files containing Terraform code are called as what? The files containing the Terraform code is called as configuration files, Terraform configuration files. So the files containing Terraform code is called as configuration files. And what is the extension? What is the extension of that files? The code in the Terraform language is stored in a plain text files with extension of what? What is the type of extension? .tf. .tf, or sometimes you can see a JSON based variant also. You can see a JSON based variant also, that is .tf.json file extension. So is everyone clear? Terraform, what do you mean by Terraform configuration files? Terraform configuration files are nothing but the files which are containing the Terraform code. Which are containing the Terraform code is called as Terraform configuration files. The code in the Terraform language is stored in a plain text with the .tf file extension, or sometimes you see .tf.json file extension also. Is everyone clear? The file extension of our Terraform configurations. Now, directories. Directories are modules, we call it. Directories are modules, we call it. As I already told, a module in Terraform, a module is nothing but a collection of a module. In Terraform, a module is nothing but a collection of .tf or .tf JSON files. A module in Terraform is nothing but a collection of .tf and or .tf.json files kept together in a directory. A module is nothing but a collection of .tf or .tf.json files kept together in a directory. That is considered as a module. A module is nothing but a collection of a .tf or .tf.json files kept together in a directory is considered as a module. Even though you have a single Terraform configuration file, even though you have a single Terraform configuration file in some directory, that becomes a module. Even though you are having only single TF file, single .tf file in some directory, that becomes a module. That becomes a module. So when we are running Terraform commands, when Terraform commands are executed directly, when Terraform commands are executed directly from such a directory, the contents of the directory are considered as a root module. Just to give an example, let's consider here I have one folder. Let's say this is my local laptop. Let's say this is my local laptop. I have one folder. Let me rename this something like this: Terraform. Just to give an example, Terraform underscore demo, like this. This is one folder in my local laptop. Within this folder, if I have a single file also, within this folder, if I have a one file also, .tf file, let me create some file like this. Let me save this file. Into that folder. Under the desktop, I have created one folder, right? Let's say under this folder, I'll create one file, something like this. Just to give an example, something like this with the .tf extension. So even though there is a single file, .tf file in one folder, and where you have defined your Terraform resources, resource configuration, whatever you want to create. Let's say you want to create some EC2 instance like this using data block also, you can define something like this. Let's say this is my Terraform configuration file. This is Terraform configuration file. So whatever directory where you have collection of Terraform configuration files with the .tf or .tf.json, whether it's a single file also. Module is a collection of .tf or .df.json files kept together in a directory. Even a single Terraform configuration file in a directory becomes a module. Can I consider this as a module, this folder as a module only? But this, the commands, the Terraform commands, suppose I am running Terraform commands. If I am running Terraform commands, when Terraform commands are executed directly from such directory, suppose I am running Terraform commands from this directory. So this directory is considered as a root module. This directory is considered as a root module. So when Terraform commands are executed directly from such directory, the contents of the directory are considered as a root module. Clear? What do you mean by directory or module here? Module is nothing but a collection of .tf or .tf.json files kept together in a directory. Even single Terraform configuration file in a directory becomes a module when Terraform commands are executed directly from such a directory. The contents of that directory is considered as a root module. So root module, Terraform root module. Every Terraform configuration has at least one module. Every Terraform configuration has at least one module. We know it as a root module. Root module, which consists of the resources, defined in the .tf files in main working directory. So root modules are the Terraform configurations. Root modules are the Terraform configuration that we are actually applying. Suppose I have installed Terraform. If I go inside this folder, if I am running Terraform apply, whatever resources has been defined in these Terraform configuration files, that resources will be created and it will have a state. It will maintain the state of those resources, whatever you are applying from that module, from that folder. Terraform always runs in the context of a root module. A complete Terraform configurations can contain root module, and you can use child modules also. We will discuss about what is child module and all those things later. If required, you can create a reusable components. And you can have reusable components in other folders within that main folder. That is considered as a child modules. Terraform always runs in the context of root module, and a complete Terraform configuration can consist of root module and a tree of child modules. Root module and a child modules. So what is this module, child module? How to create the child modules? How to refer that child modules? We will discuss later. But at least you will have a root module. Even though you are having single Terraform file in the directory and you are running the Terraform commands from that directory, that becomes a root directory, root module. And if required, you can create a reusable components, and you can keep those reusable configurations in its subdirectories that we are considering as a child modules. Those child modules you can refer in the main module, root module configurations. So in Terraform CLI, context, the module in the working directory from where Terraform is invoked. Root modules or main modules are basically same. The root in the sense from where you are executing Terraform commands, that becomes the root module. Even though I have given some example, right? This is one folder where I have a Terraform file. From this folder I am executing Terraform apply. This becomes the root module only. If you have a child modules, I will come to that point, guys. How to create reusable components, how to refer. Suppose I don't want to duplicate a lot of things. I can create a reusable components. Here I can refer module block. Something like this. I told, right, already there is something called module block. I told already there is something called module block. So you can create a modules like this, and you can have this type of information, in this folder. Under that main folder, under the root folder, you can create a one more folder. Those resources can be defined here, so that this becomes a child module. So I will come to that reusable components. First, leave about this child modules. Root module is nothing but from where you are executing Terraform commands. Where you are executing Terraform commands, that is considered as a root module. In the context of Terraform CLI, right? The root module is the working directory. Where Terraform commands are invoked. From where Terraform is invoked. The root module is like a working directory where Terraform is invoked, where you are running Terraform commands. So is everyone clear? The file or directory of Terraform, what is the file extensions of Terraform files? What do you mean by root module? Wherever you are defining your Terraform configurations, this is considered as a root module. If required, you can have a child modules, something like this, guys. Suppose I want to create some EC2 instances. Here I can just define only these type of resources. I can define. Anyhow, we will discuss in detail later, but since you guys have some doubts here, let me show you. This I can have it in a separate file under separate folder. The file extension matters here, something like this. So here I can refer some variables like this also. We will discuss in detail, guys. Like a reusable components. Now in this, where I have saved that one, let me save. I think I have saved in a wrong location. This is like a reusable. This is main root module. In root module, you have some configurations. This is like a reusable component. In this, you can refer that module, something like this. Using module block, you can refer that module. You can say the source. Where is that source configurations for that module? I can say source like this. And I can pass some information to that module here. I can pass that information to that module here as a variable. I can pass that information to for that something like this. Now the actual resource configuration is defined in this folder that we are considering as a module, child module, and we are passing input to that module. So from root module, we are reusing the child modules instead of duplicating. You can reuse the modules. We will discuss in detail in a separate concept. This is considered as a module, child module. Got it? We will discuss in detail separately. There are a lot of things you need to understand. We are just explaining the basic blocks and the directory structure of Terraform. Is everyone clear? Whatever has been discussed, what is Terraform configuration language, what is blocks, resource block, provider block, Terraform block, data block, module block, variable block, output block, local block. These are the top level blocks which is widely used in the Terraform configuration files and file extensions. If you know this concept, whatever has been discussed from Monday to till today, you are almost learned Terraform. You almost learned 30% of the Terraform. If you know this architecture, the concepts, Now everything you are going to define using these blocks only, either resource block, either data block, either provider block or module block. You are going to define what you need, what you want to manage. If you have any confusions, any queries on these modules, blocks, file extensions, let me know before we set up the Terraform. Guys, we are going to write all these things only, but I am explaining what is what at high level, because everything we are going to define in the lab, right? I want to create a EC2 instance without using this resource block. Can you write Terraform configurations to create a resources? No. Suppose I want to pass some variables. I need to use variable block. Suppose I want to get some data. I need to use data block. I want to print some output. I need to use output block. So in the labs we will make it, but I am asking, do you have any confusions here? What is what? Now, when it comes to installation, Terraform is cross-platform. Terraform is cross-platform, which means we can install Terraform can be installed and used in Linux, in Windows, in Mac also. So this is the official website. This is the official website of Terraform. This is the official website of Terraform. Terraform by HashiCorp. So there is a detailed documentation here. What is Terraform? Whatever I have explained, right? That resource block. What do you mean by resource block? What do you mean by Terraform block? What do you mean by data sources? What do you mean by providers? Everything from here only I have documented, but I have documented with the more convenient way so that you can understand. So everything is provided here. When it comes to installation also, they are giving detailed instructions how to install Terraform. If you are using Mac OS, how to install. If you guys are using Windows, how to install. If you guys are using Linux, how to install. Suppose you guys are using Sun Solaris, OpenBSD, FreeBSD, like this. They are giving again Linux, Ubuntu Debian, CentOS, Red Hat, Fedora, Amazon Linux, Homebrew. Suppose you are using Mac again Homebrew only. So how to install in Mac, Windows, Linux, various platforms they are giving. And if you see what is the latest version of the Terraform as of now, you can see 1.3.9. It is not 139, version 1.3.9. This is the latest version. Now this is the official documentation. Of Terraform, guys. This is the official documentation of Terraform. So here there is a installation instructions, there is a tutorials, there is a documentation about Terraform CLI, registry, all these things. You can see this is the registry link. Where you can find various providers, and modules. Some people has developed the modules. You can reuse the modules from registry also. Instead of you develop some module, already there is a lot of modules. If required, you can get these modules and use. Modules documentation is also there, providers documentation is also there. All these things is available here. This is the registry link, this is the documentation link. So if you have to install Terraform, there are various ways you can install. based on the operating system, Mac OS, Windows, Linux, like this. First of all, many of the guys are using Windows laptop. Many of the guys are using Windows laptop. I will show you how to install in Windows also. Now my laptop, because in real time Terraform you need to develop. Are you going to develop something in a remote Linux machines? You are going to write a Terraform as a code, infrastructure as a code. Are you going to develop directly in some kind of a remote Linux servers like this? Are you going to SSH to these servers? In these servers, are you going to write Terraform configurations? No. No, guys, you are not going to run Terraform configurations in these type of servers. You can run from these servers. You can run from these servers because development becomes difficult. Development become difficult, right? You don't have any editors. Will you able to install any editors? No. You will not able to install any editors like Visual Studio Code or Notepad++, TextPad++. Those editors will make our life easy to develop something. So from these type of servers you can run. From these type of servers you can run like your Jenkins server. You can run from any other Linux server. You can run the Terraform configurations. But you are going to develop locally. You are going to maintain the Terraform in the SCM also. We discussed all these things, right? We will develop the Terraform configurations and you are going to maintain those Terraform configurations in the SCM tools. So multiple teams, multiple team members can collaborate on that one. So development you can run locally. If you have a permissions, you have a permissions to the cloud. You have a access keys or secret keys with required permissions. Will you able to run Terraform from locally also, which means will you able to provision or update or destroy the infrastructure from your local laptops also. If you configure that provider with required access keys, secret keys, required permissions, yes. So development you will do locally, and deployment of the Terraform configurations, applying the Terraform configurations can be done from any type of Linux servers. That can be your CI/CD server also. So we will install locally. Terraform we will install locally. Most of the guys are using Windows machine. Most of the guys are using Windows or Mac, but no one is using Linux, right? Locally. Anyone has Linux desktop? Anyone has Linux desktop like Ubuntu desktop? Ubuntu desktop, Linux desktops, or Linux laptops like Ubuntu laptops or Ubuntu desktops? I think no. So we will see how to install Terraform in Windows systems. That can be a Windows laptop or desktop, and how to install in Mac also. We will see. If you have Ubuntu also fine. If you have a Ubuntu also fine. You follow the same instructions. Raja Verma. So if you have a Ubuntu also, this works in Ubuntu. You download Terraform like this. You download Terraform like this, and you need to download some editor to write the Terraform configuration. That type of editor can be anything, like a Notepad++ also fine. But I prefer Visual Studio Code. I prefer Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is not mandatory, but is that editor, is that IDE will help us to write the Terraform configurations, Terraform scripts in a convenient way, more convenient way, yes. So we will set up Terraform locally, then we will use Visual Studio Code. We will use Visual Studio Code to write the Terraform configurations. First, I am using local laptop, my MacBook. I am using MacBook. So I can install in MacBook by following these instructions. I am using MacBook. Anyone is using MacBook also, they can follow these instructions. So in MacBook, you have a homebrew. This is a package manager for MacBook. So this is my local laptop terminal. Kind of in your Windows, you have a command prompt, right? In Windows, you have a CMD or PowerShell, right? So here, this is my terminal, my Mac terminal. So this is my local laptop. This is my local laptop. If you see, this is MacBook. This is MacBook. You can see Darwin is like a Mac. If you get a Linux, when you execute uname, that is like a Linux. When I am getting Darwin, which means it's a MacBook, my MacBook. Okay. You can see this is my Mac terminal. So you can install Terraform using multiple ways. You can download the zip file or tar file like this, and you can extract, and you can set the path also. You can download this type of zip file, AMD processors and ARM processors. AMD processor and ARM processor. We are using AMD only. My MacBook AMD processor. You can see, you can go to this Mac icon. You can see about this Mac. It is this processor, i5 processor, AMD processor only, Intel processor. So I can download this zip file also. I can download this zip file like this. I can download this zip file like this, and I can extract this zip file. I can set in the path. I can extract this zip file somewhere. I can extract, and I can set the path in my MacBook. So I can maintain this. Extracted file in some folder, like my some directory like this, and I can set the path. I can set the path to this one, so that it will work. Otherwise, you can install using package manager also. I have not set the path. If required, you can set the path, or you can use package manager also. There is something called brew. We call it as a home brew. So this home brew is a package manager for Mac. The way you have a Linux, in the Linux you have apt, you have a yum, you have a apk. So this is a package manager for Mac. So I already have a package manager installed. This package manager installed in my MacBook. So I have a homebrew software. If required, I can execute something like this. These two commands I can execute. In my MacBook, so that it will install Terraform. So it is downloading Terraform latest version -1.3.9. It is downloading. But I already had a Terraform, but old version. That's why it is upgrading now. I already had a Terraform in my local laptop, but it is upgrading because I am doing installation again. It is upgrading to 1.3.9 latest version. So if you have a homebrew installed in your Mac, you can execute simply these two commands to install Terraform. Suppose you don't have a homebrew, you have to install homebrew. In Mac. First you install brew. Suppose you don't have a homebrew, you can download and install. They are giving how to install also. How to install homebrew also. They are giving installation instructions in the home page. So they are saying run this command to install homebrew. If you don't have a homebrew, follow this instruction. Whatever instruction they have given here, you can follow these instructions to first install homebrew, a package manager. Once you install homebrew, then you can follow these two commands to install Terraform. If you guys are using MacBook, you can install using package manager, that is brew. If you don't have a homebrew, first install brew. This is the website of homebrew. They have given how to install, very simple command. You execute this command in your Mac terminal. Suppose you don't have homebrew, you execute this command, single command only. It will install homebrew. Then you follow these two instructions. To install Terraform in Mac. Suppose some people might be using MacBook. So is everyone clear? how to install Terraform on Mac using package manager instead of manually downloading the zip file, instead of extracting and setting the path. You can run. This is a package manager basically. Package manager for Mac. If you don't have, first install brew using below instruction, below command. If you don't have homebrew installed in Mac already, so you run this one first, then you do this. If you already have a homebrew, you can do only this one. This is how you can install in Mac. So I have installed, it is getting extracted. After doing this, I can verify Terraform. You run Terraform command. If you are getting, one second, there is a typo. You run Terraform command, it is giving various options, right? Various options. If you are getting something like this, or you can execute Terraform version also, you can execute something like this also. Now if I am getting like this, which means is Terraform is installed in local laptop, my laptop or desktop, I am using Mac. Yes. Now you need a Visual Studio Code. Also. Why Visual Studio Code? Is it mandatory for Terraform? For Visual Studio Code, no, it is not mandatory. Visual Studio Code we are using for developing the Terraform configurations, file for writing the Terraform configuration. Visual Studio Code. It is easy to write the Terraform code. So you install Visual Studio Code. Suppose you guys are using Mac. You can download Visual Studio Code. So this is the website of Visual Studio Code. So you can download the Visual Studio Code software. Automatically it will be downloaded. Visual Studio Code zip file is getting downloaded. You extract it and install. In our Mithun Technologies blog, also we have given the link how to install, where to download also. But anyhow, you can go to Google, guys. You no need to worry. Go to Google and search also. Otherwise, I have given the link. And extract this one. Visual Studio Code. Extract this one and double click. Extract this one and double click on this one. It gets installed into applications in the Mac. It gets installed into applications in the Mac, and you can install Visual Studio Code also. And there are some extensions. I told Visual Studio Code extension. There is a Terraform extension also. Kind of a Visual Studio Code plugin. So you can modify the themes, all these things. I am using black themes. Let me modify Visual Studio Code preferences. Let me take let me change this to light color. So this is Visual Studio Code, and here you have extensions. Manage. You can go to manage. There is something called extensions. You can go to the settings button. There is something called extension. You install this Terraform extension. Why this is required, right? It will auto suggest, guys. It will auto suggest something. When you are typing, it will auto suggest something. Suppose you are writing a Terraform code. Let's say I have created one folder, right? The Terraform folder. So you need to explore this, Visual Studio Code options here, okay? This file option, you can open folder. If required, you can create a new file. I already created a folder. I'll open that folder where I have Terraform files. I'll open that folder. In my desktop, I created one folder, right? Something like this Terraform demo. What is that folder name I have created? On the desktop, I created. On the desktop, I have created Terraform demo. Let me open this folder. Let me open this folder. It will make easy. It will make easy for us to write the code. If you see, if you have a Terraform extensions, if you have a Terraform plugin, right? When I try to type something like this, when I try to type something like this, is it showing some auto suggestions like this? Because I already installed that extension. Because I already installed some extension. Now, is it again showing all the resource types supported by this provider? Here, I no need to worry. I can say AWS underscore instance. I'm typing like this. Is it showing all the resource types available for that provider? Instead of typing, it is doing some kind of auto suggestion. I can select and I can modify. I can give some name, something like this. And here also, if I press control space, it is going to give some options. The moment I am typing AMI like that, it is giving some type of a suggestions for this resource type again. And instance type like that. It is showing some suggestions for this resource type, what arguments, instead of going and checking in the official documentation, instead of going and checking in the official documentation every time, right? Once you are familiar, you can use. Now, if instead of going and checking the documentation for that AWS instance, here I will go to EC2. I'll go to EC2. I'll select this instance. Instead of checking what are the arguments, it is supported like that. Is it giving some type of auto suggestions when I'm typing here AMI instance type? Is it giving some type of auto suggestions when I say AMI? And it is giving some type of auto suggestions, right? You can hard code the value also, or you can give that value. It's up to you. And arguments also, it's up to you what type of instances you need. So let's say I'm saying something like this: instance type, instance type, instance type. What type of instance? Instance type. This is coming because of that extension which I have installed in my Visual Studio Code. I can say how many servers. I can say something like this. What AMI? You can provide the AMI. So it is giving some kind of auto suggestions because the extension. You can go to the settings. You can go to extensions, and you install this Terraform extension. This Terraform extension, which I have already installed. Let me. You can search here, guys. You can search here. You can search HashiCorp Terraform, or you search Terraform, and you select this one. You select this one, whatever it is from HashiCorp, okay, and more widely used, right? More widely used. Almost 2.5 million people has used. This is from official HashiCorp only. You install this extension. Since I have installed here, I am getting uninstall option. If you don't have this one, you will see install option. You click on that install. Otherwise, I provided this URL also. I provide this URL. One second. There is a URL. This is the URL. So otherwise, you open this in your browser. You open this link in your browser. You click on, you open this link, whatever link I have provided. in that browser, click on install, it will open in Visual Studio Code. Click on install button, it will open and install in Visual Studio Code. Since I have already installed, that is fine. So this extension will help to do some kind of auto suggestions. But can you use everything? Can you depend on the auto suggestion? No, you should not depend everything on auto suggestion. This is giving some suggestions. It's up to you whether what type of instance you need to create, how many instances you need to create, what AMI you need to use. That is your information, but it is giving some kind of auto suggestions, that extension. Clear? You can use multiple extensions also, like this one also you can install if required. Otherwise you can install this one. But initially if you don't want to use, you don't want to any auto suggestion, you uninstall. Suppose you don't want any auto suggestions, you want to learn line by line, then don't install anything, that extension. Then it will not do any auto suggestion. Remove that extension, it will not suggest anything. You need to type line by line like this. It's up to you whether you want to use extension, that Visual Studio Code extension, whether you don't want to use, it's up to you. So when you are initially learning, you don't want any auto suggestions, so remove that extension, don't install any extension. Suppose you remove and reload, so that it will not show anything. Now I have removed that extension. You can see that extensions. I don't have any Terraform extension installed now. Now since there is no Terraform extension, is it giving any auto suggestion when I am typing? Is it giving any auto suggestion like this? No. So you need to type line by line. But there are some other extensions also, that's why it is showing. I have a lot of extensions installed. Let's see Terraform extension again. There are a lot of extensions I have installed, that's why it is showing. I need to remove whatever has been installed. It's up to you whether you want to install extension, whether you don't want, it's up to you. But initially, if you don't want to use, don't install any extensions, Terraform extensions in the Visual Studio. Manually type line by line by using official website. Something like this, you need to type line by line. Is auto suggestions for all the providers also there? Yes. Based on the provider you are using, in the Terraform configuration, it is suggesting, guys. Most of the other providers also it is there, like Azure, GCP also it is there. For Azure, GCP also, but how it is showing based on the provider you configured here. That is how it will use. Okay. Now is everyone clear how to install Terraform in Mac, how to use Visual Studio Code, how to install that extension in Visual Studio Code? If you guys are using MacBook, now the guys who are using Windows, I don't have a Windows laptop or desktop. Does anyone has a Windows laptop or desktop who can share now? And the persons who don't have Terraform installed and Visual Studio Code also not installed, anyone? Maybe I want you to share the screen. I will explain how to install in Windows because I don't use Windows. I have a Mac. Anyone have Windows laptop who can share right away, where you guys don't have Terraform installed and where you don't have Visual Studio Code also not installed, because I want to show both together. Otherwise I will record offline and I will share. But if anyone has a laptop or desktop who can share the screen now, and you guys don't have Visual Studio Code and where you don't have Terraform also, because some people don't have Visual Studio Code also, I want them to also follow the instruction. Okay, you have a Visual Studio Code, Venkateshwar Rao. Okay, anyone other? Okay then. Okay then I have. Okay then I will record, guys. I'll record. I'll record and upload after some time. Okay. Maybe Venkateshwar Rao, you do one thing. You remove Visual Studio Code. You go to your control. You go to your control plan. That control panel in your Mac, your Windows laptop. You remove that Visual Studio Code and share the screen. I will show from beginning because people has to follow. Otherwise, some people, sir, I don't know how to install Visual Studio Code. Also, then again problem. So I want to explain both installing Terraform as well as installing Visual Studio Code and its plugin also. Once you are ready, once you uninstall Visual Studio Code, once you are ready, let me know. I'll give a control to you. You can share the screen. I will explain what needs to be done for setup so that it gets recorded and people can follow. And again, whoever is already installed Terraform also, guys, whoever is already installed Terraform also, try to upgrade to the latest version. Try to upgrade to the latest version. Check your version, what version of Terraform is running in your laptop. If you already installed, you can go to CMD. If you guys are using Windows laptop, go to command prompt and execute Terraform version, this Terraform version command, and make sure you are on the latest version. Even though you use old version, fine, but try to be up to date. Venkateshwar Rao, removed, completed, uninstalled Visual Studio Code. Okay, I am giving a control to you. I am giving a control to you. Don't share your screen, okay? I am I am making you as a presenter now. I am making you as a presenter. You can share the screen. Once I make you presenter, you can share your screen. I have done you. I make you as a presenter. Now you will see option called screen share. You click on that and share. Okay. And go to any browser, that can be Windows, that can be Chrome, or that can be whatever. Go to Chrome, type Terraform download in the browser. Just type Terraform download. Just press enter. Terraform download only. First link only. That is the official link. That is the official link. And scroll down. You see Windows option. You see Windows option. Scroll up, little up. There is a Windows option in the beginning only. First, scroll up. There is a Windows option, right? Select that Windows option. You can select 386 or that 386. Let me wait. 386 is going to support 32-bit processor also, 64-bit processor also. 386 support 32-bit processor and 64-bit processor also. Otherwise, you can directly download 64-bit. How to know what is your processor, whether it's a 64 or 32-bit? You can check in your computer properties. Go to your computer, that my computer icon will be there, right? Somewhere in your laptop or desktop, or go to that control, that search bar in the Windows. Search bar is there, right? In the search section in the bottom, start button, type my computer. Type my computer. In the bottom you have search, right? That Windows, next there is a search. Maybe you can do there also, that PC. Leave there, that is fine. You can go to this search, Windows icon is there, that search, type my computer like that, my system or my computer, something like this will be there, or about will be there. System, type system, type system, something like system information is there, that system information is there, click on that system information, and you see your processor, right? That system type 64-bit. So if you guys are using 64 or 32, you can download 386 also. Otherwise, you can download 64. But if you guys are using 32-bit systems, I think no one is using 32-bit nowadays. If you guys are using 32-bit, you can download 386, that download option. If you download 386 for 64-bit also, it works. You download that AMD 64. And go to your downloads folder, where you have downloaded, and extract, go to the download folder in your local laptop. Download is completed, Venkatesh. You can go to downloads folder. I think download is completed. You can go to downloads folder. I think we lost Venkatesh Rao. Go to downloads folder and extract, right click, extract all. You can click on that extract all. If you have a WinRAR also fine, otherwise extract there, then don't do anything, come back. No, don't run that one. Wait, don't do. This is not the way it is going to work. Come one folder back, come back to downloads folder, come back to downloads folder. You copy that, right click and copy that one, copy, and go to C drive, because you are not going to delete the files in the C drive, right? Go to this PC, go to C drive, program files, go to program files, because you are not going to frequently remove anything from here, right? Paste it, paste it, continue. It is asking admin permissions, continue. Now rename, if you don't want that lengthy name, rename that folder name, remove that Windows AMD 64, just keep it Terraform 130, like 1-39 like that. Just remove that till Windows. Okay, go inside that folder, copy the path, don't click anything, copy the path of that folder, there, copy everything. Go to environment variables, your system environment variables, you need to add the path in the search bar. Again, in the bottom, type edit environment, type edit environment variables. You are getting that option, second option, yes, click on that. Go to advanced. Once that page is opened, go to advanced. Advanced, you are already there. And here in the bottom right, environment variables is there in the bottom. Click on that. System level you add. No, no, don't add on the user level. System level. System level. Select the path first. First select the path. Cancel. Cancel this one. Cancel this one. You select, there is already one path variable, right? Scroll up, already it is gone. That one. Click on edit. Click on edit. Click on new. Click on new. And paste that path. Paste that path. Okay. Again, another okay. Another okay. Click on okay. Click on OK again. Here. Open command prompt. Type CMD. I hope you know all these things. Basics of computers. Okay. Open the command prompt and type Terraform. T small. Terraform space version. Enter. With this, Terraform is installed in your laptop. So you can follow, whoever is using Windows laptops or desktop, they can follow this step to install Terraform. Now download Visual Studio Code. Go to browser. Before Visual Studio Code, since we are going to use AWS throughout the session, when you are using Terraform, you need to configure your AWS credentials. Sometimes you can configure using AWS configure command, AWS CLI command. Sometimes you may need to configure AWS CLI because you want to execute AWS configure to set the access key and secret key. If required, you can download AWS CLI also. So go to browser again, open new tab, type install AWS CLI like that. Install AWS CLI. You guys can install AWS CLI. It is not mandatory. But if you have AWS CLI, the Terraform can internally use whatever credentials you have configured using AWS CLI for authenticating with AWS to create a resources. So click on install AWS CLI on Windows. And official website again, AWS official website, first link. Scroll down. Here also you see Windows options. Scroll little down in the same page. You have a power outage. Your system is very slow. Scroll down, little down. In that page, same page only, scroll down. There is an option. For Windows. Scroll down. There is a bar right at top. You have a bar, browser bar. Yes, scroll down. Maybe you can press down arrow, Mr. Venkatesh. Down arrow. Or you have some issues with your laptop performance. Scroll down. There is a Windows option, right? Expand that one. Expand that one. Expand that one. So what you can do, scroll down. The first option, you can click on that link, MSI file, or second option also there. You copy the second command, that command, scroll up, slow. No, not that one. Above, there is a one more command. Scroll up, above. So in command prompt, you can run this one also. not this one, that one, you can run that one also. Otherwise you downloaded that file, leave it, don't do anything. I don't want you to confuse. Leave it, download that MSI file. Once that MSI file is downloaded, completed, click on next, 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 like that, it will install. Sir, how to upgrade from 1.3.6 to 1.3.9 version? So Vijay Lakshmi, what you do, you download the latest one in your path, right? In your path, in your system environment variable path, update the path. So the path, remove wherever you have that 1.3.6, you have added that path, right? Remove that path and add the 1.3.9 path wherever you have downloaded. If you are using Windows, simple. Delete the old Terraform software which you downloaded and remove the path also. Download latest version, update the path to the latest version. That's it. Guys, these are basics, okay? I don't think I need to explain how to use system, how to update softwares also. Click on next, 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 install. AWS CLI is not mandatory, but suppose you guys executed AWS configure and you guys set your access keys and secret keys. Those access keys and secret keys, those AWS credentials can be used internally by Terraform if you guys are using AWS provider to create and manage the resources. Okay, that's why I'm asking you to install AWS CLI. But it is not mandatory. There are different ways to pass credentials to the Terraform, AWS credentials. We will discuss all these things in the sessions. Finish, click on finish. Now open a command prompt again, but a new command prompt. Existing command prompt will not work. Open a new command prompt. Not file location, just click, click, click on that command prompt. That's it, open. And you type AWS space hyphen version, AWS space hyphen version. So AWS, remove that hyphen, just AWS, I think AWS hyphen version, or maybe, yeah, remove that, yeah, just type hyphen, yeah. So AWS CLI also configured, Terraform also configured. Execute, double check Terraform also, Terraform version command, Terraform space version. But AWS CLI is not mandatory. People might be thinking, sir, Terraform internally use AWS CLI. No, Terraform will not use AWS CLI internally. Terraform will use some concept called providers, plugins. So you are using AWS CLI just to configure your access keys and secret keys. Whatever access keys and secret keys you configure, Terraform can internally use those credentials. But Terraform doesn't use AWS CLI. Okay, it is not mandate. Now download Visual Studio Code. Download Visual Studio Code. But I think you have very less internet speed. I don't know how much time it takes for you to download Visual Studio Code. How much time it takes, not sure. Let's see. Again, it's a exe file only, guys. Again, it's a exe file only. Like click on next, 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 it will install. That's it. Download for Windows only because it is auto selected. Click on that download for Windows. It will start automatically. Wait for some time. But it is taking so much time. 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Did you have already downloaded this one somewhere? Because you need to download, but anyhow, It will take some time. Do you have this exe file already downloaded somewhere, Venkatesh? Somewhere in your laptop? You can just click on that next also, it will install. Just see, somewhere you have already downloaded, right? Last time. That might be in downloads folder, or that might be in C drive. You have already downloaded somewhere, right? That might be, you might be stored somewhere last time when you downloaded, or you might have deleted. It is already there. So once you download, it will come like this into the downloads folder. Now click on that run as administrators or open. Click on next. Yes, click on OK. Accept terms and conditions. Click on next only. You install. You can, once you guys download like that, it will be downloaded to the downloads folder like that exe file. Then you can double click on that one, click on next like that. It will install the Visual Studio Code. Now once it is installed, it will appear in your programs. It will appear in programs list. It will appear in your program list, or you can add a shortcut to the desktop also. You can add a shortcut to the desktop. All those things I think you know. Now here, close this one. Close this one. All these things. Go to the extensions. Minimize this. Whatever folder you already opened, minimize this. People will confuse. Go to the extensions. You can search there. I think you have already started. Already you have started. You can search there. Otherwise, I have given one URL. Open that URL in the browser and click on install also fine. So you are already installing, right? That HashiCorp Terraform. Type HashiCorp Terraform and click on install. It gets installed and it is asking reload. Click on that reload. Reload required like that. It is asking. So click on that reload, which means your Visual Studio Code will be reloaded again. Now I hope you can play around this Visual Studio Code option. Suppose you want to open some folder. Go to file. Go to file in your Visual Studio Code. Top right corner, there is a file option in a Visual Studio Code only. File option. Go to folder. Open folder option is there. Suppose you want to open a new folder, and if you don't have a folder, you can click on create folder like that. You can type the folder name here. Suppose you want to go to select desktop maybe, or wherever you want to create folder. So create a folder, right click, create folder option will be there. I mean to say, here also you can right click, guys. Here also you can create a right click, new folder. Create some folder like a Terraform demo, something like that. -demo. And select that folder. Select that folder. Just select that folder. Select folder. Bottom also there is a select folder. Select folder. That's it. Now that folder is open, but there is no files. There is no files here. So expand that Terraform folder here. In the there you can see some buttons. You can see some buttons next to that. The first button is new file. Second button is new folder like that. So you can type main.tf or whatever. You can give any name, something like this, main.tf, and you can start typing your Terraform blocks. You can define resource block. You can provide provider block. All these things. So this is how you just set up. Don't write any code. Don't write any code. You just install Terraform. You install AWS CLI. You just install Visual Studio Code and that extension. We will start the labs next session. We'll start the labs next session. I hope everyone can install Terraform, AWS CLI, and also Visual Studio Code with that extension by following this video. Whoever is using Windows. Okay. So whoever is using Mac, I have already explained. In my local laptop, I have already installed, right? So I have already explained. You can follow that one if you guys are using Mac. So install this thing. We will start tomorrow. We will explain first a Terraform workflow. Terraform workflow. We will explain the workflow, how Terraform works. Then we will start creating small resources. Slowly we will get into the advanced concepts. Okay. Thank you guys. That's it for today. Venkateswar Rao, can you please make me as a selector? Presenter. Again, go to the participant list. Go to the participant list and select my name and make me as a presenter. You can go to meeting app. Go to meeting app. You can make me presenter. Okay, anyhow, that is fine. You stop screen share. You stop screen share. You make me presenter. In the bottom, you can see in your. Okay, anyhow, I can do this. I can do this. So let me share the screen because I can do myself also. That is fine. You leave it. So that's it for today, guys. That's it for today. Follow the instructions. Okay. Install Terraform, AWS CLI, and Visual Studio Code. I'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. That's it for today. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. But make sure everyone is ready with the Terraform and Visual Studio Code before coming to tomorrow's session. Thank you.